it's a book about the Queen's Night Market by the organizers of the Queen's Night Market. And the time of the pandemic, the Queen's Night Market didn't open. So there were a lot of food vendors that didn't have jobs, and that was, the time it happens in Corona too. So a lot of people didn't have work. So what happened was, since we were supposed to have the book launch in April in the shop, it was going to be an activity, big book activity. We were ordering empanadas and stuff, like a big party. And then we didn't have, we were closed, so it got moved to June, and it became a Zoom event with the Queen's Museum.
Yeah.
And we featured three of the vendors featured in the book cooking in their kitchens.
Nice.
And it was supposed to be just a book launch, and it was just supposed to sell the books that I have, which I had 50 copies of it. The shop was closed. And then it turned into a very different thing, because they were cooking in their kitchens. They were telling people how to cook it, and they were explaining how the pandemic hit them. One had COVID, but then he still had to open, and then and then one had to get a job in Amazon just because she didn't have any work.
Yeah.
And there was a dog who was the one who was tasting the food if it was okay.
Oh.
So it turned into a very different thing. It was I didn't actually expect it to be a success, but even Hitomi and everyone else watched it, and they were like, wow, we should have more of this, because it's really about the community.
Yeah.
And it did get a lot of attention from everybody around the community. So it's like that. It goes. You start off with a project, with your nose a little up. I'm doing a project for the museum, and then you get there, and then suddenly it's a bigger thing, bigger than you.
Yeah, but it's also really nice to see how the community people involved are actually really helping to shape it. Because sometimes when it's a project that comes from the museum, some curator or the person in charge will have an idea of this is what we want to do and this is how we're going to do it. But it's really nice to hear that your projects kind of started quite open, with an initial idea but not really all planned out and with a completely set framework yet. And that then the community members get a chance to really kind of help shape it. And I wonder actually, how would you describe how much agency those community members had? Do you think they decided what the project looked like, or do you think it was a kind of 50-50 between what you had in mind and what they wanted to do? Or do you think in the end you had the main kind of decision-making power and they kind of filled in the details? Or where would you see that balance?
The projects that I've done, it's mostly we have Adrian and Catherine work it out, and they're the safety net.
Yeah.
So we go crazy. I go crazy with the ideas, and then Adrian and Catherine pull me down to reality.
Yeah.
and they're very, very good with the logistics of it, and they're very, very loose about how it would go.
Yeah.
So generally, I would think that we throw out the idea, and then 50-50 with the participants. They shape it.
Yeah.
And I go the far end with the idea, and Adrian and Catherine organize the logistics and really make things happen.
Yeah.
But really, they are the ones who make it feasible.
Yeah.
And it's completely organized because of them, but it's just a safety net.
Yeah, that makes sense. But that's a really nice balance. I think it sounds really interesting. And I wonder, because in my research I sometimes use the word co-creation to describe types of collaboration that sound a bit like this. But is that a word that you would ever use? Is that something that means anything to you? How would you describe what you think co-creation is?
Yes, I think, yes, because I think the projects are a cooperation between me and Adrian and Catherine.
Yeah.
Just because I usually give them an idea and they say, yes, okay, that sounds good. Give me a proposal. And then Adrian comes back with me, fixes everything.
Yeah.
So it's a co-creation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And is co-creation a word that you would use at all when you describe projects like this?
Yes.
Nice.
And the thing is, working with them, it's because I've worked with other artists and museum people, and working with the people at the Queen's Museum, there's no ego, a very, very little ego that it's really a collaboration.
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, I so love Adrian and Catherine. It's it's so, it's really a collaboration, and it's so easy to go back and forth with. You think this is good, and they would say, not really. How about this? Okay, it's that kind of relationship. So,
yeah.
So it's so easy to dream up of all the magical ideas you can think of, and then just throw it at them, and then if it's too crazy, yeah, of course. I think of something else. It's very easy to come up with plans because they're like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And have you had similar kind of co-creation relationships with other departments in the museum, or has it mainly just been with Adrian and Catherine and Gia, I guess?
When I started at the museum, I thought it was mostly with curatorial, but then I think since they prepare the actual exhibits, it was a little too much on their plate for me to be involved with them, and especially at the time, they were missing. They needed more staff, and then I also wasn't that into it, because it felt a little, for the shop, because I wanted the community, and when Deb and Sally got the shop, I think one of the selling points was I said I'm an immigrant, and Queens is my home, and it was about that. So I wanted to do something with that, and then so I was talking with a lot of education also with Guido. I wanted to do the Echo Local program, something similar to it pre-pandemic, and then they already had their set programs. So, but eventually I ended up with with public programs, and it was the best fit, and I was able to execute my projects with them, and I feel like since we can have makers come in, that's the best group for me to work with. Yeah, because right before the pandemic, we were going to do a T-shirt contest with Queen's teens, and then we will make their shirt, and then they'll get $100 gift certificate at the shop, and the kids were so cute. They went in the shop and they were planning already what they were getting with $100. It was adorable, and then because they were kids, they were like, I'm going to make a shirt. Like, they were. It was so nice, but then it was a little bit of an overlap with what Kimada teaches. But with public programs, I don't overlap with anyone. And it's it's a project,
Yeah, that makes more sense, definitely. And I do wonder, does the museum sponsor you in any way? Like for the Head Show Locale, do you get a budget for it, for instance, or is that all on your time and costs?
It's my own. Because I felt, for me, I really didn't ask for a budget because I felt like it was my way of giving back. Because the museum has been very supportive of me. Sally has